Hey beauty, listen up. It's really quite simple. You're a divine soul having a human experience, and all the abundance you seek is available to you right now. Your assignment is to get out of your own way, become your most aligned and magnetic self, and open up to receive the desires that are placed in your heart. Because what you are seeking is also seeking you. Welcome to the Abundance Club. I'm your host, Amy Wilkinson, soul and abundance mentor and manifestation teacher, and I love that you're here. Let's go ahead and expand and play in this field of infinite potential. Hello, beautiful Abundance Club. Welcome back. I have a really exciting and interesting episode for you guys today. I am chatting with Dupe Witherick, and she is the founder and executive coach of Thrive Alcohol Free. So this discussion, we are diving into what it takes and why it's important, particularly if you are feeling this calling of late, to start to ditch the drink and start to choose better alternatives for your health and your well-being. Dupe helps high-performing leaders break free from alcohol and thrive both professionally and personally. So she uses her Thrive method and integrates mindset skills, EFT, breathwork, and human design to foster resilience, emotional intelligence, and lasting transformation. She's also written a book called A Cocktail of Clarity and is the podcast host of Thrive Alcohol Free. So really, Dupe changes the narrative around alcohol and provides a lot of encouragement. And what I really liked from today's episode is there's some really good strategies and tools for you to start to incorporate that are going to support your success in being able to make this transition. It was really interesting because this is a transition that I was guided to make earlier in this year, but really probably over the last 18 months or so. And the way that it's impacted me in my well-being, in my energy, in my sleep has been quite profound. So I'm a huge advocate of it, and I feel like there is a bit of this shift that's occurring. So I know that we've still got a long way to go, and for many people, alcohol is still very much a big part of their life, but it's just great to know that there are alternatives and there are ways that you can take a break from it or break up with it if you feel called to. And Dupe is one of the best people to offer that encouragement and support because she's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to, even what alcohol is and why we have so much trouble eradicating it from our lives and why it's so important to, particularly if we want to succeed in life, particularly if we want to go after our goals, if we want to create the type of abundance and call in the type of abundance that our soul desires. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Please make sure you subscribe or follow along, review, send this episode to a friend. And yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Let's dive on in. Okay, welcome, Dupe. Lovely to have you here. I'm actually really excited about this conversation. I think because I feel like it's topical, it's relevant, and I almost want to say it feels a bit on trend. At least that's just been my experience with this conversation. So you are a coach for women leaders who want to basically thrive without having alcohol in their life. Yeah. So this is obviously something, I guess, to start with, to know a little bit about your journey, what it's taken you to get to this point where you want to share and support and serve women in this way. So it's obviously something that you're deeply called to and passionate about. So what's been your journey to get to this point with releasing this from your life? Releasing feels like a good word for this.
Yeah. Well, hi, Amy. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It's great to be here. It's interesting, isn't it? Because if you'd asked me probably 4.5 years ago, would I be advocating not drinking? Would I be a coach that's specialising in the alcohol-free lifestyle? I probably would have laughed at you and then poured another glass of wine just to prove a point. So it is it's
I
quite
love
a
that.
different place to where I was expecting to be in 2024, in October 2024.
Mm,
But where did it start? I think for me, I one thing I want to highlight is there was no sort of road to Damascus. There was no rock bottom. I had always considered myself a normal drinker based on, I suppose, who I surrounded myself with and the places I worked and things like that. Um, and I always felt that you had to drink to to have fun, to be social,
yeah.
to connect with people, to fit in. And that stemmed back to probably university. So that's really when I started drinking. I think I've spoken to people all over the world, so I think it's a very similar thing. But in the UK back then, we had Freshers Week. I know you still have Freshers Week here,
Mm, mm,
but it was a very much a week where you're away from home. The majority of you are away from home for the first time. You are having to make new friends, you're in a completely new place, and you want to, you try and join clubs and join various things, and then getting to know people all revolves around drinking. And that's really the
mm,
start. That was the start for me. I'm sure I dabbled in it probably between the ages of 16 and 18, but I was very focused. I was a bit of a nerd, and I wanted to, get good grades and things like that. So I didn't want the distraction of partying and before I sort of got to university. And so university was probably when I really first started drinking. And then the reason, and I reflect on this now, but I think one of the key reasons that I had the thought that I've just mentioned about you have to drink to fit in, you have to drink if you don't want to be boring, those sort of things that we all think about, is
mm,
because in that first year, I was in a hall of residence. And so in the hall of residence, we had about 180 people, and you all lived together and everything else. And there were two people that I remember, and I'm sure it was probably more than two, but I only remember two people who didn't drink. And to me, they were ostracized. No one talked to them. They never came out. They never did anything. They were boring. And it was, they were the people you just like, oh, that's a bit sad. You've got no friends. And I'm sure they had a whale of a time, but to me, it wasn't the norm. It wasn't how you are cool. It wasn't how you fit in. And so that sort of stuck with me. And then I went into the city. So I was in the corporate world for over 20 years. And in the city of London, it was very much work hard, play hard environment. And it was quite a male dominated environment at the time. Um, and as I went through my career, I was in management consulting for many years. And then that involved a lot of clients, global clients. It involved business travel, it involved client dinners, it involved networking, it involved conferences. I would speak at quite a number of conferences. I'd be sent all over the world. I was sent to Dubai one year by a vendor that we were working with. They wanted me to talk on their stage at their sales kickoff. And so, went off to Dubai and just remember having this like lavish few days. And it was just that was just the norm, but everything revolved around drinking. So I never really questioned. Obviously there were times where I probably went a bit far, and wake up the next morning and you'd be like, I probably don't feel great. This probably isn't a good thing. But it never occurred to me that you could ever stop. Obviously, I thought you could moderate and you could cut down and you don't need to drink during the week and all of that sort of stuff. But it was never a thought that I could actually stop. And when I was, well, in my 30s, I had our daughter. Our daughter's 10 now. And then the whole mummy wine culture was there. And so, again, you're meeting new people, you're in a completely different environment, and they're generally people from all, all sorts of places, not necessarily have anything in common. So, again, the way to sort of get to know them is to play dates, and then that involved, a glass of wine with
Mm.
with the children. And it just felt like that was the thing to do. And so fast forward a couple of years before I stopped drinking, I just felt like I couldn't drink red wine. My heavy red wine had been my thing. That was I loved it. I was never really a white wine drinker. I was always a full-bodied Malbec, Rioja. We lived in Spain for a year, very, very early on in my 20s. And I think that sort of stuck with me. I loved going to vineyards and I felt like I was a sommelier. I knew all the wines, connoisseur, um, very pretentious. And anyway, it got to a couple of years before, and I was drinking. I drink like a glass, and it started to affect me. I just felt like it just wasn't settling on me anymore. But again, instead of saying, oh, well, maybe I should stop drinking, that again didn't cross my mind. I thought I'll go on to the lighter red wines. I'll have the Pinot Noirs and the less alcohol. And then it was, yeah, that's still not working. Okay, I'll go on to the white wines. Okay, that's not working. So by the time I got to 2020, I stopped in November 2020. I took a 21-day break, and then that's continued since. So it's coming up to 4 years. It'll be 4 years in the next week or two. But in November, in 2020, it got to the point I was only drinking gin and tonic and champagne. And that sounds, again, quite pretentious, but they were the only things I could stomach. And obviously COVID happened. We were lockdown again. I think the memes that you were getting from the WhatsApp groups and everything else, it was like the only way we can get through this is by drinking. I know, we all know that the number of people that were drinking excessive amounts during that time increased rapidly, because it was a way of coping. We weren't working from home, we were living at work, and then we would have homeschooling, and you wouldn't really get out the house, and so it was a recipe for disaster, even though the government felt like it was still a necessity to keep like off licenses open.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think combination of all of that, I got to October time and I was thinking, I'm not looking after myself. I'm not really. I was the people and purposes. So I've done a lot of coaching and mentoring for many years through work. And one of my roles was people and purpose lead. So I was very much coaching, mentoring people, making sure they were looking after their well-being and everything else. And I was promulgating all the things people should be doing. You shouldn't be on your screen all the time. You need to go out for, take that hour's walk, make sure you're eating healthily, doing all of that. But I was doing none of it myself. And so it got to October time and I was thinking, I'm just not looking after myself. This can't carry on. I was working quite long hours. I was on Zooms constantly. I wasn't really looking after myself. And so I thought, I've got to do something about it. And at the same time, our church at the time said, why don't you let's do a 21-day fast, do a 21-day giving something up. And so I thought, actually, I'm going to not drink. And I've said this before, right? So I've tried to do your dry Januaries, and I tried to stop drinking for Lent, and I don't think I've done sober Octobers, maybe I had tried, but invariably the pattern was I'd do the first week, I'd get to Thursday, and then I'd think, in the first week, as in Monday to Thursday. And then the Friday would come and I'd be like, well, I've done so well. I haven't drunk all week. Maybe I just don't drink on the weekends. Maybe that's the rule. I don't drink in the week and I drink on the weekends. That's the rule I'm going to give myself. And then by the time you get to Monday, you've already failed and you feel you failed, and you then start berating yourself. You feel like you've, completely just not done what you said you were going to do. So what's the point? I'm not going to carry on. But this time around, it felt a bit different. It felt a little bit like I'd had this nudge for a while saying, actually, maybe stopping drinking might be a good thing. Yeah. Maybe just don't drink. That might be a good thing. And I didn't really think, I was like, but no, I don't think so. But I did think I'll do these 21 days. And I was pretty determined And that was the first time I think that I actually felt I'm actually quite determined here to do 21 days. I'll do the 21 days, then I'll go back to it, then I'll moderate. And um, just before, the day before, I thought as a last hurrah, I'm going to have a glass of champagne because I'm not going to have anything for 21 days. I opened a bottle of champagne, which in hindsight was complete waste because I poured a glass and I had probably 2 sips maximum. And my stomach just started to churn. And I thought, it's time. There's something that's not agreeing with me. I can't be not drinking very much. And my husband said to me, you weren't even drinking very much, but I can't be not drinking very much and feeling like
Yeah.
crap. So I was like, okay. And then the other thing that really hit me, and it might sound a bit weird, but I had this sense that the truth will set me free. The truth will set me free. And I was thinking, free from what? What do I need to be free from? I've got a good life. I've got, a good job, family. We do lots of fun things. Obviously, it was COVID, so it had been a strange year. But we generally travelled, and we there was nothing. There was no real reason for me to not drink. Um, but the truth will set me free. So I took the 21 days, and in those 21 days, quite a few things happened, which made me then think, right, this needs to maybe carry on for a bit longer.
Mm.
But again, as you can imagine, Christmas was coming up, New Year's was coming up. You couldn't not drink during those times. Oh my goodness, what? And so, anyway, long story short, I ended up stopping on the 9th of the first day I didn't drink was the 9th of November 2020, and I haven't gone back since. And so I'm a huge advocate of no matter how much you're drinking, it could be as little or as much as it doesn't matter. If you think that in some way your life can be better, physically, emotionally, spiritually, or mentally without alcohol, then take a break and just see where it leads you, because the likelihood is it's a good thing and it's something that will potentially change your life because it opens up the doors to endless possibilities.
Yeah. And that's what I really want to speak about. I mean, so much in there that you covered that I could like dissect and unpack in so many different areas that impact so many of us. And I think we all come to this from different places, right? Whether it's for
Mm,
physical health or whether it's mental or emotional health or energetic expansion. Like I know for me, and you mentioned the word nudge, just getting that nudge. And
mm,
for me, in the work that I do and my kind of story with this has been just that nudge, just those whispers from my guidance
mm,
system. I'm very connected to my guides and to my soul over
mm,
this last year or so as I was calling in a bigger vision and wanting to up level in that way, there was this feeling that there were some things that I needed to let go of. And it wasn't something that I necessarily predicted or expected. I mean, and have never been a big drinker, but I could just was starting to get those little whispers coming in.
mm,
So I think
mm,
that we can all approach it. We all come from different pathways into why we're choosing to let this go, many different places. But what do you see nowadays? Because it seems like there's been a paradigm shift.
mm,
It seems like from that story when you were at university and there were the two randoms that weren't drinking and you were just like weirdos in the corner, that it's a little bit more acceptable. And as I said before, like there's even you could even say a little bit on trend because we're seeing now, I don't know what it's like in England, but certainly here in Australia, when you go into the alcohol shops, there's definitely more of a bigger space for
mm,
alcohol free wines and options. So I can see, and even in restaurants, you can just see this shift and this trend starting to happen. Why do you
mm,
think that is now that we're seeing this kind of movement to finding a little bit more acceptability around ditching the drinking habits that we've had?
mm. So I think
How
there
do
are a
you
few
see that in your
things.
world? Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are a few things. I think it's a well-being thing. People are more conscious about their well-being and their health. I certainly think that the younger generation aren't as bothered about it as maybe we were at the time. When I was growing up, it was all about, Ladette's, Bridget Jones, Sex in the City, all of those things promulgated booze, promulgated drinking to be sophisticated, to be glamorous, to have fun, to keep up with the boys. That was the whole messaging that was there at the time. And so again, that was normal culture for us. Whereas I think maybe with the rise of social media and people not wanting to end up on social media looking a certain way, people are a lot more conscious of what they're doing. But that isn't to say that it isn't there. I was speaking to a friend of mine whose son just started at college in the US, and she was saying, he's never drunk, and he's been dabbling in alcohol, and and the people around him have been, quite heavy drinkers, and he's sort of navigating that because he doesn't really want to drink, but he's sort of wanting to keep up. So I think it's still there, contrary to what we want to say. I personally think because we're in that alcohol-free movement, we think everyone's doing it, but actually there is still a huge swathe of society who it isn't even a thought. And again, especially the people I work with who tend to be sort of 35 to 55, 35 to 60, there is still, it's still very much a thing. And I would say that obviously people are very much aware of health and well-being, but then I wonder whether people are aware of the impacts of alcohol. I was on a panel yesterday for menopause and work and thriving in the workplace, talking about the alcohol aspect. And a lot of people don't appreciate that actually a lot of the symptoms that you experience during perimenopause, menopause, which is that age group that we've just talked about, and postmenopause, alcohol exacerbates a lot of those symptoms. So the hot flushes, the mood swings, the anxiety, the joint pain because of the inflammation, it increases the estrogen, it reduces the progesterone. So there's so much there that alcohol's actually not helping with. And if you take out the alcohol, you can then really see what are my symptoms, what is it that I'm really feeling during that time, and then what do I need to do about it, as opposed to having layers of things and your body having to work even harder to remove the toxin, manage the hormones, do all of that, just because you've got the alcohol in there. Alcohol is ultimately ethanol. It's what we clean our homes with and fill our cars up with. So the fact we pour that down our gullets and think it's fun, it isn't. And I think people don't appreciate that it's linked to 7 types of cancers, including breast cancer. And again, during that time for women, that's when the risk of breast cancer is quite high as well. So again, if you're adding booze to it, it's not helping. And so there's this lack of awareness because we've been told that alcohol gives us so much. And so although absolutely the trend is going in the right direction, there is still a huge education piece to go, and there's a number of people that could probably do with stopping drinking. But again, because of the environments they're in, the friends, family, the industries they may work in, they might think that isn't possible. They can't.
Yeah, well,
How
let's
are they
talk
going to
about
do
that
that?
in terms of the social aspects, because you mentioned about, belonging being such a core fundamental human need, really, is that acceptance and belonging. And I think that colors for so many why they choose to, particularly as women, but also as men, why they choose, so that they're not judged. And I think that the judgment piece really comes into it as well. Like, is there something wrong with you? And there is still that. Yes, whilst there is a trend where it's becoming a little bit more acceptable, certainly in most environments, you're still considered on the outer a little. So can you speak to that in terms of some of those, more of that emotional component with a feeling of, if I'm not drinking, what am I going to do? And am I going to be as much fun? And am I going to be accepted into the group?
Yeah.
what are the struggles that people are finding with that, and how are you suggesting that they overcome that? Because I know just with people in my community that I've spoken to, some of them will want to refrain from putting themselves in that environment because they don't want to be judged, or they don't want to be looked at strange, or they want to be accepted. We need to be accepted as in our humanness. So and that's not something that we necessarily maybe initially want to do, is be isolating ourselves. What are some tips that you can offer for somebody that is kind of grappling with this a little bit, and maybe wanting to make that shift, but feeling those social pressures around it?
Yeah, it's a huge thing, especially, I mean, it all boils down to identity as well. And our identity, we don't appreciate, is potentially wrapped up in alcohol. You know, I'm known as the Prosecco Queen, or I'm known as the G&T lady, or whatever. You know, the people around you know you for, you know, you'll go into a bar and they'll say, "Oh, I've ordered you a drink," and they'll give you what, you know, what you always drink. And so one, it's sort of shifting that perception of your identity, which is the work that I do. But also, it is initially not putting yourself in that situation if you think it's going to impact you. You need to make this a non-negotiable. You need to, if this is something you want to do, you need to make it non-negotiable. You need to really be clear on your why, and then go from there. But the reason, to your point, that people won't do it is because of that judgment. And I think I felt, you know, my own personal experience, I felt like, oh my goodness, people are going to think I'm an alcoholic because I'm not drinking. People are going to think I had a problem. And actually, a lot of people don't really care, one. And there are people that sort of look at you weirdly, of course, and they sort of say, "Oh, what happened?" And I was asked that question because I remember going to a work do, um, and this was just after we were all getting back after COVID, and I said I wasn't drinking, and they'd obviously known I'd been there for like 9 years, and so they looked at me, and one of the guys turned around and said, "Oh well, my friend had an issue. He ended up in rehab during COVID. So was that what happened to you?"
Oh gosh, because of course it must be, right? If you don't have a drink in your hand.
You have to laugh, but I remember sort of wanting to be swallowed up at the time, because you do feel that shame, that guilt, you know, without really needing to, but that's what's put on you. And I say it's the only drug that you need to justify not drinking, you know, not taking, because really
Yeah.
it is a drug, right? And we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves. We can turn around and say, we're not going to change because of so and so, or because I don't want to put myself in a position. But actually, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, if you keep going and you keep drinking, even though you know deep down that it's not helping you, where are you going to be? What is that going to look like? And depending on what your answer is, if you think I'll be absolutely fine, there's no issue, you know, it won't affect my body at all, won't keep getting the nudges, I can moderate, whatever the reason is, fine, keep going as you are. But actually, if you know deep down that in 5 to 10 years it's going to get worse, and it will get worse, because ultimately alcohol's an addictive substance, and so the more you drink, the more addicted to it you are going to become, and it's going to become more of a habit, and it's going to become, your tolerance level is going to be higher, you know, you're going to end up drinking. It's a vicious cycle. And so, you know, I say to people who try to moderate and say they're going to moderate, I say to them, okay, right, we'll do an experiment. If you can moderate, what are the rules around moderation? Okay, my rules are, I only drink on a Wednesday night, and I have a glass of wine on a Wednesday night. I then only drink on a Friday and Saturday. I have 2 glasses on a Friday, 2 glasses on a Saturday. That's all I do. Okay, do it for a month and tell me that you can do that for a month and you can actually stick to that. And if you can, brilliant. you'll find that actually on Thursday night, you get back from work, you're feeling stressed, the kids are going, driving you crazy, and you want a drink. And you will sit there and you'll either try and white knuckle it through and get really sort of moody and angry and sort of, I need a drink, or you will just pour yourself a drink.
Yeah.
You're not going to do a month on those rules.
Mm.
And also with that, yeah, go for it.
No, I think that's interesting, isn't it? And something you said here about being clear on your why, that feels really important. That there's this kind of like a little bells for me, because for me personally, when we're talking about rules, I'm not someone that's great with rules. That's why I didn't really appreciate COVID and being told what to do. And I don't know
Don't
if
think
anyone
anyone
did.
did.
I don't know if anyone did, but I am not great I was never great with like dieting back in the days when I, would dabble with that or anything like that, because any kind of restriction on me, and I think that as souls, we are wanting to expand and to grow and to be free, and sometimes popping that restriction on, it can work in the opposite way and create some friction and contraction. So it hasn't worked for me personally. However, what has worked is, as you said, like knowing your why. And for me, that was like, okay, I've got some really big visions that I want to work towards, that I want to call in. So I'm upgrading my being. And in that process was the guidance and the whispers and the nudges that came through. And so what does it feel like to honor that? Or what does it feel like to go against that? And then instead of putting the rules in place, for me personally, it was like, I'm just going to see how I go. I'm just going to see how, and this is for me, and this obviously doesn't work for everyone because I wasn't a big drinker. But the more that I tuned in with my body and went, am I actually wanting a drink because that's actually something that I really want to sit and enjoy, or am I doing it from a different place of a need, I'm feeling emotional at the moment, so I want to kind of numb that, or from an escapism. So understanding even the why around reaching for a drink, like how am I feeling in my body? Where am I coming from? That is what kind of helped me. So I think that that's a really great tip, is just having this bigger vision around what are you wanting to create in your life? What are you wanting to call in for yourself? And where does this have a place for you? And that was something I wanted to ask you, is then the tips with doing that. Do you kind of suggest the cold turkey thing, or do you suggest a bit of an ease into it, a bit of a play with maybe putting yourself in an environment where you might normally have one, whether that's like on a Friday afternoon after, and choose a different option? Like, what are some of the tips that you would give people in starting to make that transition or play with that?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. It's exactly what I talk about. It's a feeling. When you go for a drink at any point of time, you're either trying to create a feeling or escape from the feeling. And so, which one is it? And I also talk about emotions. From a negative emotion, we always think, actually, we use alcohol to numb our emotions, to sort of reduce the stress, to reduce make us sort of not worry about
Not
things
feel them.
and escape, not feel things. But we're also numbing the positive emotions as well. So we're not truly feeling that joy, that sense of fun, that sense of laughter, because we're a bit blocked. So I think that it's something that you should be aware of. And so one of the tips I have is that before you reach for that glass of wine or whatever it is that your tipple is, pause and think, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Or am I tired? Which is halt. And a bonus, am I fearful? And actually question it and say, which one is it? A lot of us, there's that wine o'clock. And actually what we need at that wine o'clock isn't a drink, it's food. And actually, if you eat something, you might find actually you haven't got that craving for alcohol, because it's our blood sugars are low, because we've gone through the day and we've probably just got to the point where we actually need some food. And so again, pausing, that's a real big tip. Pausing and thinking, halt. Am I hungry, angry, lonely, tired? or fearful, and then doing something instead, going for a walk, doing some exercise, having some food, having a nap, whatever it is you think you need, picking up the phone and talking to a friend, do that instead, and then go back and say, right, now that I've done that, do I actually want a drink? And you'll probably find you don't. And so that's one of the key tips that I give.
That's a great tip. Okay, so what if you've got someone that's saying, okay, no, it's none of that. I just want to go and have fun and catch up with my girlfriend who I haven't seen for a while and want to go to a bar and I'm just going to go and have a couple of drinks because it feels good. Like what can you
Yeah,
speak to those kind of people? And I can relate to
yeah.
that as well. I've spent most of this year alcohol free, but there's
Mm,
been a few occasions where I've caught up with a dear friend and had a beautiful Italian meal, and so I've got one glass of wine with it,
mm,
to
mm,
savor it and do all that. But
mm,
even in doing that, when I say that, I notice having have had such a big break from it, I notice how it feels in my body. I'm so more
mm,
acutely aware how it feels in my body when I
mm,
go to bed that night. And being in
mm,
that perimenopausal phase, I notice that
mm,
those symptoms are exasperated. So that's just a side note. But
yeah,
what would you say to those people that are like, just want to go and have fun with a friend and do
yeah.
that?
Yeah, and again, isn't it funny that we think that you need to have fun by having a drink? If
Mm,
you go back and you think about all the times you've had those really fun nights or fun days out or whatever, has it been the booze or has it been the company that you're
mm,
in?
mm,
What's actually made you laugh? What's been fun about it?
mm.
Has it actually got to the point that you had slightly too many drinks and by the end of the night what started off as a good night ended up not being so great? What is it that you're actually looking at? And we can all with rose tinted glasses say, remember that summer's night where we were out in the beer garden having lots of fun, but actually what was the fun? Was it the booze or was it the company, the people that you
Yeah,
were around? And
I
so
love
that's one
that.
tip. The other thing for me, I'm a huge advocate of alcohol-free drinks. I was a judge on the World Alcohol-Free Awards, and you touched on it earlier. If I look back 4 years ago, there was hardly anything. There were a few things, and actually, for me, alcohol-free drinks were a game changer. And I discovered one really early on, which helped me stay the path. But I'm a huge advocate, so I try. I think we had hundreds. We had hundreds of entries. I personally blind tasted about 50, well, over 50 products. And the range is amazing now. So if you're looking for that, head over to the World Alcohol Free Drinks and you can see
Oh,
the
great.
results there.
I'll put that in
Um,
the show notes for people that are looking for that.
yeah,
Yeah, great.
yeah. But I would then say go for something that's an adult drink. And so if you're going out with your friend, check online, see what drinks they have. And if they have something that's alcohol free, go for that because then you'll feel like you're having an adult drink. There's so many mocktails. I have a mocktail recipe, a sort of guide with my 10 favorite mocktails that you can download on my website. So, you know, if they haven't got any drinks, tell them the mocktail recipe to make for you. They'll be able to make
Yeah,
something for you. Ultimately, our inner child doesn't want to feel like it's missing out, doesn't want to feel like there is something that that's being deprived of. So you're effectively tricking the brain because if it looks like even a lime and soda with ice and a lime could look like a gin and tonic. So
yes,
you
yeah,
don't, it's sort of say I think alcohol-free drinks are the way to go because you then have the fun, but you're not feeling like you're missing out. You're actually feeling the JOMO, the joy of missing out, and that to me is probably the best way to still go out, have fun, and enjoy it. And you will realize that you are. I mean, I haven't laughed so much. There's the belly laughing, it's the laughing till you're crying. It's that genuine sense of joy, which you just don't have when you are drinking. And
yeah.
so, again, you'll probably have more fun and you won't feel like you're missing out and you'll be enjoying a nice drink.
Such great tips. Such great tips. I know for me, when I've gone to like even just going down to a surf club where they've got like that alcohol free like Aperol spritz. I never
Mm,
drank the
mm.
alcohol Aperol spritz because I didn't really like it.
Yeah,
But it was like,
yeah,
great, and
yeah.
it feels the same. And I know when I started to do
Mm,
this, I created a little knockoff drink for myself on a Friday with some
mm,
non-alcoholic stuff, and I put one of those like fancy dehydrated fruits in the top. And
mm.
I started to, and I felt that same, when you would have that drink and you just feel that little bit of that, like, just that little edge go off.
Yeah,
And I felt the
yeah.
same thing. So I love what you
Mm,
said about tricking your body. Right,
mm,
and I just think
mm.
that and also you said something about being prepared, like having a look in
Yeah,
advance and seeing and
yeah.
preparing yourself. Such great tips. So let's talk about on the other side of all this, what people can look forward to when they
Mm,
do eliminate this from our life. And in
mm,
the elimination, because this is the abundance club, right? And so
mm,
my listeners are very much about putting themselves into a place where they are receiving more abundance, the abundance that's available for them. So, what has been your experience in
mm,
the elimination of this? What that's opened up for you on the other side of it that people can look forward to?
mm. So much. So
Yeah.
much. I really believe it's by getting rid of this one thing, it opens up the door to everything. And that's the bit that I'm excited about. So as a transformational well-being coach, it's the transformational side, it's the piece afterwards. The ditching drinking is just the start. It's how do you then create the life that you want from that? What does that look like? What is it that you want to do? Because what you find is actually by being alcohol free, you've got a superpower. You can do anything, and it makes you brave. And actually, you start going after your dreams again. You start literally dreaming again, because we don't realize, again, alcohol really affects our sleep, our deep sleep cycles, our REM sleep, which is when you dream. And so we are literally dreaming again. We're literally saying, actually, what can I do now? What do I want to go after now? A lot of people take up new hobbies and passions, and they suddenly remember the things they used to do as children or teenagers before they were drinking, and they start doing those again. And other people suddenly want to help others, become coaches. Other people want to write books. Other people want to start podcasts, and it just gives you that lease of, like, other people go out and get a promotion or get a big raise or get a different job.
Well, it
And
clears your channel, right? It
it's
clears your channel for
absolutely.
those information and those downloads to be able
Mm,
to come through. And that's what excites me about it in
definitely.
my work, is that it's,
Yeah.
as you said, like the sky's the limit then in terms of what you can co-create when you
Yeah,
open up that
absolutely.
channel. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly from a manifestation perspective, from a really hearing your that inner voice, it really helps. They say that in Arabic, alcohol is alcohol, which means body eating spirit. And so actually, it's quite harsh, but when you think
The
about that,
visual.
you're not, when people say they're out of it, they're not themselves there when they drink. It's because their spirit is not there. Your soul's not there. You're not able to get the downloads. You're not able to intuit exactly where you're meant to be going, what you're meant to be doing. And for me, clarity is everything, and that's why I've named my book A Cocktail of Clarity. um, because actually that taking that one thing is part of the cocktail, but actually then increases everything else. That's just the one ingredient, so then you've got everything else around it. So I suggest that you could do anything, whatever it is, and your wildest dreams, something you might have been thinking about for a long time, you actually have the inclination to at least start it, to try it. And you might not like it might not be what you want to do, but you don't hold yourself back or talk yourself out of it, as many people do when they're drinking, because we're all rah 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 when we're drinking, and I'm going to conquer the world, and then the next morning it's the last thing you want to do.
I know.
You haven't got
And
the
for me,
inclination to do
that was
anything.
the pushing point. It was like, I don't want to have a day where I feel like shit. I'm not available for that anymore. I actually want
Yeah.
to wake up. I love the days. I love life. I love
Mm,
the mornings. I have that
mm,
sacred time to connect. I don't want anything to take that away, not even for a day,
yeah.
but usually it's a couple of days, really. Like, that was
It's
the other thing I wanted to ask you. Is it true that it takes like 90 days for the alcohol to actually leave your system, or is it 90 days for you to actually be able to start to really experience the benefits? Is there some truth to that, or is that just something I've heard?
So no. So in terms of leaving your system, they say, it takes about 5 days for it to leave your system, but ultimately most people are drinking within those 5 days. So it never actually,
Mm.
it never actually
It's always
completely
there.
goes. It's always there. It's always underlying. But what I say, and a lot of people say, is it's sober October. We're in sober October at the moment. I think sober Octobers, dry Januaries are fantastic, but you're never going to see all the true benefits in 31 days. And if you can get to that 90-day, 100-day mark, I guarantee something wild would have happened that you were not expecting.
Mm.
Um, and so that's why if you can get, I advocate doing 90, 100 days, because then you also switch as well. Your brain starts to see things differently. You see the benefits, and you also, and you also are generally something exciting has happened in those 3 months that you probably wouldn't have happened if you were still drinking.
And it's loosened its grip on you. It doesn't have that hold on.
Mm,
You
yeah.
don't really know your true capacity until you experience life without it, right?
It's so
Like,
true.
we don't, and so for many people, they're never going to experience that if they're not giving themselves that 90-day break. And I know for me,
Mm,
a big part of it was curiosity as well. I want to know who I can be
mm,
without this. I really like to challenge myself. So I was like, I want to
mm,
know who I can be. And also I found that a lot of expanders in my world, a lot of women that were doing incredible things and were creating amazing things, had given up alcohol. Like, it almost
mm,
seems like it's a rite of passage as you are growing and expanding, that you're
mm,
not available for this. As your frequency is rising, it's like, this isn't a vibrational match anymore.
mm.
It's actually
Yes.
going to pull you right down. We need to turf it out.
Mm.
Mm.
It absolutely lowers your vibration. That's a fact. It doesn't, you're not going to be at high vibes if you're drinking.
Yeah.
Um, and you're right. I mean, the number of the elite performers, the number of the celebrities that do really well, that then go on and win Oscars and all the rest of it, they don't drink. Contrary to, even though a lot of them have alcoholic brands that they, advocate, they're
Oh
not
gosh.
drinking them.
Yeah.
So again, I would look around. It's a bit of a secret, it's a bit of a best kept secret that
Yeah.
actually people that don't drink are the ones that are doing incredibly well in life.
Mm, mm. Yeah.
So again, if you're ambitious, if you want to be high performing, if you want to really get to that next level, eliminate this one thing and see where it takes you.
Yeah. And what can you offer to people that, just as kind of final words of wisdom for people that know? I think so many people have this knowing that I really should, because I do want to take care of myself in this way, but I don't know if I can. And particularly for people where it is a weekly thing, it is quite a regular thing.
Mm.
Like, what's something we can leave people with to offer to them that's just going to support them to get over that hurdle, that initial hurdle?
Ultimately, it's giving yourself permission. It's giving yourself permission to say, I'm going to try something different. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to step away from what society says is the norm and do something uncommon. And actually, that's a really amazing thing to do, right? It's something that's um, uncomfortable, yeah, but how incredible, it makes you to be this sort of pioneer, this person who is going against the grain. And I know it's not easy, and I know we've got so much conditioning around this, and it doesn't help that when you look everywhere, the marketing spend on alcohol is only second to cars. And so if you think the global marketing spend, it's something that's everywhere. You see it on TV programs, you see it on on movies, you walk into the supermarket, it's there, it's everywhere. And so it's easy to think that actually I'm doing something that's so weird if I don't do it. But actually look at it as a superpower, look at it as something that you're not giving up anything, you're only gaining. And it's about reframing what it means to you, because we have put alcohol on a pedestal. We are saying alcohol's doing this, this, and this for us, and it's lying. It's not doing any of those things. And if you can, as I mentioned, it's 5 days to get it out your system. If you can just at least see how it feels without it and how you are. One of my clients was saying she doesn't know who she is. She doesn't actually think she knows who she is because she's been drinking for so long.
Yeah.
And she thinks people know. She thinks people think they know her. She thinks she knows herself, but in all honesty, she's only sort of she doesn't know herself, really know herself. And a lot of people are the same. You find out what you're made of and who you are. And if you're curious, as you say, I think curiosity is key to really know what clarity, awareness, focus, being fully present means. Then just go for it and be bold,
And nothing
because
changes if nothing changes, right? And
exactly.
I think it's also reminding yourself that it's safe to change, and it's safe to meet yourself on the other side of this. And yes, that is a death of an identity there. We get so grippy to our identity.
Yeah.
And I think that this is huge for women and men, and particularly as you're meeting that kind of middle life where there's a lot of identity shifting, and we get scared to let go of that identity. But we know in order to flourish and grow, there has to be that death of the old, to embrace
Definitely.
the new.
Yeah.
So wonderful. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I have learnt a lot. I've taken a few notes. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your wisdom. How can people connect to you? And do you offer coaching for those who are struggling to make this transition? Can you just finish with speaking about that?
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Amy. So you can get in touch with me on thrivealcoholfree.com. I offer one-to-one coaching. I offer group coaching. I'm currently doing for one-to-one coaching, I'm doing an Activate package, which is a 2 coaching session package. So this is for both people who want to ditch drinking, want to break that habit with alcohol. We do 2 intensive coaching sessions. And then for people that have already broken free but want to really thrive, I do a 2 package coaching session where you have an intensive coaching session on something that you're trying to change, to do whatever you want to be coached on. So that could be anything from a career move to another habit you might want to start or break. Positive habit morning routines, looking at well-being elements, etc. And then I do a human design session as well, so people can really get to sort of understand themselves a bit more and their strengths. And so Activate is a package if you just want to get started with coaching. I'm on Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free, and I have my podcast, Thrive Alcohol Free. So it's quite consistent. And then my book, Cocktail of Clarity, with its companion online course. So a Cocktail of Clarity.
I'll pop all that in the show notes as well. So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's really important work for people to also know that they can have someone to work alongside them, to support them, for those that are struggling with this, and that just want to be able to see who they are on the other side of this. So really, really important work. So thank you for what you are doing in the world and sharing your gifts and your presence and your energy. And
Thanks, Amy.
have the most beautiful day over in England.
Thank you. Take care. See you again soon. Bye.
Bye. You have made it to the end of the Abundance Club. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I loved you being here. And I hope you feel more abundant, more at ease, and more inspired. If you did enjoy this episode, please take the link and share it with a friend. And of course, if you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the podcast on your platform and leave me a review if you can, because that really helps me to share the love and helps women all around the world to become more of their magnetic, abundant, wise, worthy self. And we need more of this in the world. And as a gift to you, I have a really cool and powerful Desired Fulfilled 60-minute subliminal, which is incredible at reprogramming your subconscious mind and getting you on the frequency of your desires and in a place of receivership, which is a really easy and powerful way to co-create your dream life and co-create in the field. So I would love to send that to you. All you need to do is DM me the word desires on Instagram. Just send me a message with desires and I will shoot it back over to you. I've loved being in this space with you. Thank you so much. I will see you next time. In the meantime, have an amazing day, week, month. Love you so much.